Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Evergreen RX. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. Am I looking tan? To all you visual viewers, am I looking a little tone tan, fit, and ready? Am I sounding a little bit sun-kissed? Any of you listeners? Do I sound relaxed? I just got back from Hawaii, so that might be why. And I had the best time, and I wish I was back. I love to travel so much. I haven't talked about travel a lot on this podcast, which is kind of surprising because I really love it, and it just makes me feel so alive and so inspired. And I don't know why I'm being silly about it, because it's true. But yeah, that's a little update on my life. It was really nice to get away and get a little bit of a break and get to take a little space from my work and the podcast. I mean, it was just like a week, and but just to even refresh and let my mind wander. And that kind of inspired today's episode because my mind got to wander a little bit and ponder, and I just had free space. And so that kind of inspired today's episode. And I really want to talk to you guys, like a little chat. We've been doing a lot of the Dear Evergreen episodes, answering you guys' questions, which I'm still going to do. I have a question actually that's really related to this topic. So, once that'll be in the kind of second part of the episode. I'll answer a listener question. But I want to do things a little bit different, a little more chit-chatty, and just sharing my thoughts on something that I think about all the time, which I'm calling the Pinterest effect. I don't know if that's the best name for it, but that's just how I refer to it. And so basically, when I was traveling, actually, because I feel more inspired and I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to change my life. And, finally, I'm going to live out my Pinterest dreams, my Pinterest boards. I've been making boards now every month this year. I just thought that would be kind of like a fun thing to do, set the vibe for the month, maybe some loose goals represented by photos. I don't know, I'm pretty visual, so I thought it would be nice to do. And it has been nice, but it's kind of steeped me back into the Pinterest world of aesthetics and ideas and crafts and the most beautiful location you ever seen, the cutest outfit with a girl just effortlessly laughing with a cone of ice cream, really pretty ridiculous shit when you take a step back and look at it, what the feed is, what these boards, my board for April, it's got a riverbed and a girl and her boyfriend laying in dappled sunlight and bowls of fruit and farmers markets, and it's awesome and I love it, and it captures a vibe for me. But also I live in Texas, it's already 90 degrees out, no body of water near me looks like the ones in the photos. Farmers markets are not full of produce right now, and especially going into the summer, because nothing can grow here when it's so hot. It's great to dream and to just set a vibe, but also it's just funny because these expectations are so high, and I'm one of the photos is by the mountains and the other photo is by the beach. So girl, what you looking for? But it just, all that to say, it really had me thinking, because when you scroll through the Pinterest feed, and even the things that I find myself liking and you might find yourself liking and pinning, it has such diversity. Kind of like I said, the beach and the mountains, there's such diversity to what is represented and glorified, so to speak. You can find anything you want. I mean, it's a huge search engine. That's the whole point of it. But when I'm saying Pinterest, I'm kind of also, you can say Instagram probably the most out of other social medias, since it is so visual. But I mean, you can even talk about YouTube, just anywhere where we're kind of taking in all of this content online. But in particular, I think Pinterest is a specific culprit of pushing forth a lot of perfected aesthetics with no context, no context on who's in the photo, no context on if it's even a real photo. I've got exposed to the fact that there's a lot more AI images on Pinterest now. So maybe the place you're lusting after doesn't even exist. And it's just like really blatantly like, this is the best way to do things. If your homemade tart doesn't have decorations of fucking rose petals, then you're not doing it right. I remember a couple years ago, not a couple years ago, like probably 10, I don't know, when there was the whole like millennial real or expectations versus reality, and you'd see somebody like trying to replicate things basically that they found on Pinterest and showing how terribly it goes most of the time. So it's a real blatant kind of aesthetic and vision being sold when you're scrolling on Pinterest. What I think is really interesting is the trap we can fall into is glorifying all these different aesthetics that are most assuredly not the same person or even the same lifetime. Like a simple example I can think of is the whole Mamma Mia free spirit type of aesthetic. I want to be traveling in Greece and like going to nightclubs. And then there's the opposite side of the coin, like the cozy at home reader, like makes her own sourdough loaf girl. Not the same person, most likely. I don't know. Think about your friends. Is there a friend that does both? Is there a friend that honestly does either one of these things? Because that's not what real life is. But like, I mean, maybe they dabble. Maybe they dabble in making some sourdough, but that's not what their day-to-day looks like. But anyway, like, do you really know someone that's both of these things? And most definitely you don't know them doing both at the same time or kind of embodying both aesthetics, because we only have so much time in the day. And also people tend to gravitate towards different hobbies with their, limited time. And so it's just interesting to me because on the surface, it's pretty innocuous. I think that's the right word. I don't know. Like neutral seeming. That, what's the harm? Okay, so you like this photo of a girl reading in a cozy little nook in Seattle, but then you like a photo of a girl with all her girlfriends like partying in Europe or whatever. Like not bad. There's nothing really too wrong with that. But then, as we know here on the Evergreen RX, my dears, is we like to dive a little bit deeper. And when I go deeper, I'm like, this is a really weird expectation we're setting for ourselves. We're kind of setting ourselves up for failure, which seems like to be a common thing when we go online and start to see other people's lives and compare ours to that. But it's just a weird unexamined thing most of the time, where a lot of us gals and guys and pals are like following a bunch of different people online, and we appreciate different things about each of them. And I think particularly those of us that gravitate towards more lifestyle content, we really like the content and the person because of how they live and how they look and how they dress and what they do. But each of those people has their own unique spin. And if we're kind of in this like little comparison thing that's so hard to not be in when we're absorbing all this content all the time, if you're in this comparison, you're comparing yourself to a lot of different standards and a lot of different lifestyles. And, we just can't be everyone or do everything. And we certainly can't do it all at once. I think in an episode way long ago, probably like season 1 or 2, I mentioned how once I started working, once I wasn't in school anymore, Saturdays kind of became like a hellscape for me because I couldn't decide what to do. I could just do whatever I wanted, and I felt paralyzed by that because I'd sit down to read a book, and then I'd be like, but no, I shouldn't be reading a book. I should be going and riding my bike. It's so beautiful out. But no, I shouldn't be riding my bike. I should be hanging out with friends at a coffee shop. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And then I couldn't decide. And then I'm just like, I don't know, I guess I'll lay here and watch YouTube. But we can get so paralyzed because, when we're on Pinterest, we're scrolling and we're in the inspiration, the dreaming space, the intention space. When I'm making my little April Pinterest board, I'm like, this is amazing. It's a new month. I'm going to go on a picnic. I'm going to go to the farmer's market every Saturday. I love it. I'm so excited. And so I'm like dreaming. It's all a dream. It's lovely. It's fun. It's whatever. And then we can struggle to move into the action phase or like the creativity phase. Because we're just intaking and we're absorbing and we're sitting on the couch and we're not being challenged. We don't really have to use a lot of energy to do it. And we just get to imagine everything in its perfect state and nothing's been ruined because we haven't actually done it yet. And so it's easy to stay there. And when we try to take action or do our own creation and not just absorb, what everybody else has done, it gets a little messy. And I'm going to touch on this more in my listener question, so hold tight for that. But I do think that this can keep us swirling in this stuck space. And a really important point of that is the fact that shit is never going to be as perfect in real life as you want it to be. Why is that? Well, it takes more work. There's a possibility for failure or disappointment, which even without the failure and disappointment, just the idea of it can get us stuck or make us panic. And it almost never looks or feels exactly how we want it. We don't have total control. When it's not just a photo, we can't control it because guess what? It's hot out when I wanted to go read in the park. And so now I don't want to sweat. So I can't do that. I mean, I could, but I don't want to now. And another point on it not looking like how you want, this is like the same old hat. You guys have heard it 1,000 times, but whatever. I have a little anecdote, so I'm going to share it with you anyway. That it doesn't ever look or feel exactly how you want because it's not real most of the time what you're comparing yourself to. As I mentioned, there could be AI generated photos. That's a mind fuck because now it's not even real. But also, the high curation and staging and planning of the content that then ends up on Pinterest and we, see it for 5 seconds in a scroll and we just internalize it in a million other photos like it, and it starts to make us believe that it could be real. When I was in San Diego, which I went to after on the way back from Hawaii, I was at this diner and this girl comes waltzing in a pink satin gown, like floor length gown. It's a Sunday morning at a diner and she's in a floor length gown with like a little friend that was like dressed in jeans. And at first I thought, ooh, they did not communicate about the vibe. Somewhere wires got crossed on what the vibe and what the outfit was going to be for this event. But then I realized, oh no, this is her little social media crony who's taking photos for her. And so, okay, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Still is kind of interesting, but this girl, she orders a milkshake that she doesn't actually drink. It's just for the photos. And they've got this nice camera and flash photography, and I'm sure the photos turned out great and cool and inspiring, and you see it and you're like, dang, I want to look like that and like be so beautiful sipping my milkshake at this diner, and like how fun. This girl's life must be amazing. And not to say anything about this girl's life. I hope it's amazing. I bet it's amazing. But like that photo is just complete fabrication. It's an art form in and of itself, honestly. If I'm going to give it a more generous view than I think people could typically give content creators, it is an art form. It is a photo shoot. You're planning, you're creating the fantasy. And it works, but we forget it's fantasy. Because no longer is it the cover of Vogue magazine where you're seeing this beautiful image and you maybe have a conceptualization that it's a photo shoot and there's a huge team and hair and makeup and whatever. Now it's getting sold to us as if it's just real life. Oh, I just effortlessly, like somebody just caught this candid of me. Maybe some of the savvier amongst us would be like, okay, she's in a satin gown. Obviously, this is a photo shoot. But in other contexts and photos, like the things that I like on Pinterest of girls in like cute little sneakers and a sundress at the farmer's market, it seems so much more believable. Oh, somebody just snapped that pic. So when I get candid photos, I'm like, why do I look bad in these? Well, because it's not the 500th that I've taken and posed for. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying not to sound too like hateful on anybody that like takes photos or does social media or whatever, but it's more about like the culmination. It's not any one individual's like responsibility or fault. It's the culmination of all of this where we start to just like internalize that life can actually be this way. I found an article on Medium that kind of touched on this Pinterest effect that I'm talking about. And I'll have it linked below, but there's a quote in it that said, "I constantly felt pressurized, wanting to be better, trying to look better than like those Pinterest girls, always wanting to be perfect, wanting to be as aesthetically pleasing as it seemed on Pinterest, wanting my life to be like those girls." And it reached a point where I started comparing myself to them. Yeah, because how could you not, And I think it's so interesting when it's like wanting my life to be as aesthetically pleasing as it seemed on Pinterest. Seemed, keyword, because it's not actually the way it seems. So that's my thoughts. This is my general, and this is kind of the bedrock for the specific question that I want to answer. So we'll just jump into that. But before, please take a moment now or at the end of this episode to let me know your thoughts. You can comment below the episode or comment on my, Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and let me know what you think about this, because I'm sure there's other opinions or maybe other positive effects or negative effects that I'm not talking about. And I would love to hear from you, because this stuff plays like so often in my brain and I think about it all the time. And I wonder who else is thinking about it, because I don't know. I don't have these conversations that often with people in my life, and I would love to know who else is thinking about this. Okay, so now let's open the shop, the Evergreen Apothecary, where we share our thoughts and our opinions, and I answer questions as best as I can. And I do have a background as a therapist. This isn't therapy, but, low credence to how I answer these questions, right? And, you take what you want, you leave what you don't. I don't know everything. I don't know your life. Don't worry about it, okay? Dear Evergreen, I keep getting overwhelmed by how many different versions of the perfect life I see online. One minute, I want to be a mindful girl with a morning yoga routine. The next, I think I should go partying with my friends. Everything looks beautiful and curated and right in its own way. How do you know what's you versus what you've just absorbed from scrolling? Okay, how interesting. I really like the comment on everything looks so like right in its own way, because I think that's so true. When we see these like very curated like Instagram pages or whatever, it all just looks so good. Even if I don't like care about the, coastal old money aesthetic that they like to rock, there's something that's good about it because it's so like well done and executed. How do you know what's you versus scrolling? I'm like, girl, I don't know. I don't know how we really do these days. I got some thoughts. I've been thinking more about taking more of a detox for myself, even like really monitoring how much time I'm spending online. I already try to reduce it, but even more so because I feel like we're getting influenced even when we don't think we're getting influenced. And do I really know how I would want to dress? Or when I go into a store to pick out a shirt, like what is telling me what I like and what I don't like? And so it's an interesting question. And I think it's something people have been grappling with for a long time before the internet as well. I think it's just at like an even higher volume because we have so much constant access. I think because it's so fast moving, trends have always been a thing. Back in, I'm sure, the butter churning days, you were coveting your neighbor's gorgeous new apron or something. I don't know, but there's always been trends. There's just like a rate to trends now that is breakneck, like the micro trends, and things are just constantly going in and out of style. But trends, because of that speed, I think have become really unsustainable. And that's part of the reason that we feel pulled in like 100 different directions. I think we're a bit in a revival of the messy 2000s aesthetic and like the slut pop era and just the true pop star. And that is in real direct contrast to the clean girl aesthetic that wasn't that long ago. I mean, these are so opposite. And there's still micro trends that are glorifying that clean girl. And then there's all these kind of more overt trends right now glorifying the 2000s. And they're in contrast, but each has its own pull. And as I said, like it all seems so perfect because it's designed that way. Trends are designed to make you want it and covet it. even if that doesn't really come from inside of you, like how this listener is saying, like, how do you know it's you? Even if that doesn't come from inside of you, there's something that, we're social creatures and we want to like be a part of the thing, be a part of Barbenheimer and Brat Summer and like all these cultural movements. And so we might feel drawn towards it, even though we wouldn't really like that, or it doesn't really fit with us if we were just in a vacuum. So my first question, my first of a series of questions I would say to think about or to maybe ask yourself is, what's more important to you? Is it more important to be on trend or to have your own style and to feel really aligned in that way? And this is not a rhetorical question. It's going to be different for everybody. And if you really value being on trend and you think that there's something really fun and like engaging about that, go for it. My guess is the person, with this question, or any of you out there with this question, feel a little less drawn to just being on trend, or else you wouldn't be wondering, like, how do I step out of this a little bit? And so if that is you, notice what feels good when you're doing it versus what feels a little bit more like a performance. Or maybe you put on an outfit that just feels uncomfortable. It's just hard to settle into. Not like it's pushing your boundaries, but more like it's outside of the bounds of what you like. And, if you're trying out a new sport or you go to Pilates, because that's a big thing right now, checking in, like, do I really enjoy this? Like, if I was in an empty room or like didn't talk to anybody about what I spend my time doing, would I still do Pilates? Do I like it enough? If you couldn't document anything from your Saturday, what would you spend your time doing? And to remember that we all make choices. We all have a finite path. You can't live 17 different paths. So when you think about that and you understand you're really only going to have one aesthetic, even if you change and rotate aesthetics, that's still your aesthetic, which is just an amalgamation of the things that you do and you like and you wear and you try and whatever. And so remembering like that's true for all of us. And so is there something that feels more authentic to you that would be really nice to embrace? Even if that means saying no to these other, maybe more on trend things that cycle in and out. Really wondering and thinking about, like, don't you value the people that you follow or the, people that you see in these gorgeous Pinterest photos? Don't you value that because it seems and it appears like this person has their own unique vibe and that they're not just a copycat or it's not changing every other day? Isn't that what you value? So remembering that, well, maybe we get in this comparison trap and start kind of being in the rat race of trying to emulate the things that we feel online or seeking satisfaction through attaining this quote unquote perfect aesthetic. And I would also recommend, I have like 2 other podcasts that I would recommend to you if you want to just do some more listening. One is my episode 8 on values. This was a big thing for me and it's something I've been working on a lot recently. I can go out and get the cute clothes and I like to do that and it's exciting, but I also really hate the idea of how wasteful it can be. So I've been trying to focus more on finding more sustainable options, which takes a little bit more effort and it's not really so on trend. And yeah, it's just not as easy for me, but it is aligned with my values. Same with spirituality. Like that's a really important part of my life. So I naturally just fall a little bit more into that yoga, like meditation type of a thing. I'm more of a homebody. I like to chill. And so that's just aligned with me. It's aligned with the kind of lifestyle I want to have. I'm not the girl that you're going to see out at a bar really late at night because I like to wake up early in the morning and I can't do both because I also like sleep. So I have to choose. And I'm choosing based off of what's really aligned with my values. And then my other recommendation would be episode 26. This is a really fun podcast up with my brother. And we talk about how to find some balance in your digital life. So if you're really looking on a way to kind of detox and recenter from, being on your phone and absorbing all this info all the time, that is probably a good listen for you. And I'll have both those linked below as well. And also stay tuned for next week. Also, bye customer. Hope I answered your question. Bye. But stay tuned for next week's episode because this is in the same vein. This has all been so top of mind for me. So I thought let's just kind of do a little mini series of 2 episodes on this kind of topic. So I'm going to be answering a listener question about romanticizing your life and how to find presence over feeling like you're performing. So very much in line with this, and just thinking about how do we take everything that I've talked about in this episode and apply it to real life and day-to-day life, and why does that sometimes feel like a real struggle. So I think it's going to be super interesting extension on this conversation. So if you liked this, again, please let me know what you think. Reach out to me, follow me anywhere at the Evergreen RX, and send me your questions, guys. Please text me or call me and leave a voicemail at 512-655-9888. I would love to hear you and hear your sweet little voice and answer your question in an episode very soon. If you're new here, follow the podcast. I upload every single Wednesday. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.